Buenos dias. Welcome to Spain. Hi, Tanya.
Hi. Buen verano. Happy
What
summer.
run? Okay, that sounds good. So, do you have an Spain for us today?
I do. It's this one's very Spanish.
Okay.
And we differ because you're in an international school and we're in a school that's following the Spanish calendar now more. I mean, and local ones. So some of the Spanish schools will have also a local holiday to that little town that has nothing to do with the rest of
They're little patron
Valencia or
saints.
Spain. Yeah. So you are starting on
Monday.
Monday, September 8th. We are starting on Tuesday, September 9th, because Monday is a holiday. So we're literally starting the school year with a holiday.
Of course it is.
Of course. Why wouldn't you be?
So while
So
I'll
that
be rejoicing in my child-free home, you'll still be making snacks and lunches and
we will still be trying to figure out how the uniform works and making sure that everything's in the backpack and all that good stuff. Well, hopefully we'll be more organized than that. But yes, we do have an extra day.
Gotcha. Well, that kind of leads us in. Well, it's the end of the summer, so I guess we should recap. I mean, that's what this episode's about, is us recapping what we did with our families this summer, what excursions we took.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
have two children, and you have a husband, a dog, and a child. So,
Yes. And a few cats.
and
But
if
they
you
didn't
get
come on holiday with us. So we took the car and the dog, and you took
and
the
your
train
child, I
and
hope. I hope you took your child.
yes. Well, I mean, I'm just assuming that everybody knows that the family went, and then the other things.
Yes, and we did a train trip. So we went to Andalusia for the summer. So, well, not for the summer, our summer vacation. We went away for a week, and we did a train trip. So me and my daughters, we met their godmother, one of my best friends. She flew down from London and met us and did the trip with us. But it was a train only trip, so it was relaxation from the moment we basically left the house till we arrived. I didn't have to worry about driving and traffic and cars, which you
Well, and I
can go
think
on.
that's kind of like there's pros and cons to each, right? I
Right.
mean, we had the freedom to go wherever we wanted because we were driving, and we did change our mind. We were going up to France, and we went to France, and we went to Montpellier, and when we came back, we decided to take a different route and go by Zaragoza, and then come back to Valencia. So we did decide to change our mind, and that's probably something that's easier if you have a car. Also, we have
Right.
the dog, so I don't even think Blaze would be allowed on the train. She's too big.
Yeah, I don't think they allow big dogs like that. I think you can
Yeah.
bring. I think if they can fit in a case, carry-on case, that's about it. I mean,
That's about it. Yeah.
yeah,
So that's kind of the benefit, but we have the cost of obviously the cost of gas and toll roads. And you can, use ways and go around the toll roads, but it will take you a lot more time usually. And
Now, does Spain have toll roads? Because I remember years ago driving through Europe and being murdered in my wallet by the tolls in like France and Switzerland and those tunnel tolls of like 30 euros. I'm like, what? So,
yeah, I think we probably spent around 20 or 30 euros each way on tolls. We could have gone around them. So we did
wow.
the little like touring around in different places. We stopped at Tarragona, we stopped at Figueres to see the Dali Museum. We stopped, and then we tried to power through because we really wanted to get to France. That was kind of the purpose of the trip, was to
Mm-hmm.
get into France. And but it takes a really long time to get from
Right.
from Valencia to France. I mean, by the time we got into France, we were quite close to Montpellier, but we had wanted to obviously go to France, and I had not realized that there's a big chunk of France right there that's like called French Catalonia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's still very French, but we really wanted to get into the France part, so we couldn't just cross the border and hang out there. We
Because
really
you're
needed
like,
to
it's
go.
Spain light, right?
It's gotta be a little Spain like. We didn't stop to see how it is, but we plowed through and went to Montpellier, which was really nice. So that was our little where we went,
Okay. Right.
there.
So we went to Andalusia and we went to just three cities. We went to Sevilla, Cordoba, and Granada. So we got kind of like, it was kind of a let's see all the big sights and to see that area of Spain and taste the flavors and do all of that. And it was great.
Right.
And the train was great because we got to see the countryside of Spain. And I think we've discussed this before, that Spain is the leading producer of olive oil. And when you're taking the
Mm-hmm.
train through all of Spain and all you see are olive trees, Not hard to figure that out. So,
Right, that's true. Yeah, you're seeing different. I don't know what it was like when you're taking the train in all the southern parts. We had a pretty the drive up through France and even over to Montpellier was very similar terrain to here.
mm-hmm.
But then when we came down and we sort of made a west turn at Barcelona to get to Zaragoza, that drive was spectacular. That was big mountains. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. Completely different to
Was
the
it
other part of our
still
trip.
arid or was it more green there? Because was it.
I don't think it was very green. It was sort of pine tree mountains, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, and big mountains. So I sort of felt a little bit like I was in Switzerland going through the little
Oh,
tunnels,
lovely.
and things
Oh,
like
cool.
that, which
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
really cool. But it wasn't, I don't think it wasn't yet what I imagine the very northern western part of Spain being, which I would imagine to be much more green and lush. And by
Right.
the time we got to Zaragoza, going from Zaragoza back down to Valencia, which is like a big triangle. You're going to sort of
Mm-hmm.
Barcelona, Zaragoza, Valencia. Then it's starting to get quite dry coming down. Of course, it was like 105 the day we left Zaragoza. We were traveling in those few days when it was
Right.
100 plus, and it
Yeah.
was insane. So the fact that everything was dry and sort of yellow, I don't know whether it's an indication of how things usually are, or whether it had just been hot for the last month. Obviously, things change in the winter, but it was beautiful. That drive was gorgeous.
Sounds it, yeah. I mean, the train ride was gorgeous. I will say one thing about Andalusia is, which was funny, when I was telling people from Valencia we were going to Andalusia, everyone looked at me like I was insane. They're like, "Oh, the heat! How could you go? It's crazy. It's Satan's mouth down there." And I'm
Kind of
like,
known for that.
"Yeah, they're kind of known for that." And then we get there, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's beautiful. It is hot. It was like 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than here, but
Mm-hmm.
also like 80% less humidity there. So I didn't sweat at all once. And we were climbing mountains in Granada and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's a dry heat. And I grew up in
Very
a dry
dry.
heat and I grew up in Vegas.
Yeah.
And so that dry heat, I was like, oh,
So
this
you
is
didn't
pure.
mind that as
I
much.
loved it. I was in heaven. I was in
Yeah.
heaven. And I will say on our return, once the train doors opened in Valencia, we were just covered in sweat, all of us. It just drenched.
Well, and it's funny because anyone that's been listening to us will know that we argue and disagree a lot about the humidity in Valencia. And around that same time, we were doing something, and we had to go down into the city near the beach, and we left the mountains. And I'm gonna agree with you now that the difference in humidity between the city here and the
Hmm.
mountains, tremendous. I'm
Right.
not saying this is every day all the time, but that day, I mean, we I mean, it's hot and it was a little sticky up here. We got in the car, we got down there, we got out of the car, and we were like, "Oh my god, like I can't breathe," and I can't breathe, and I need to get back into air conditioning.
So I'm almost
And then
hearing.
just to confirm it, when we got back in the car, and we were like, well, maybe we're just imagining it. Maybe it got humid in the last hour,
Right.
right? So we did the same thing. We get back in the car, we get out of the car up here, and it was back to normal. Big
So
difference.
Tanya, I accept your apology. So
So I will. So yeah, I think that's all those times. I just couldn't imagine that the humidity could be that different
well, we're
between
closer to
where
the
you
water.
are.
And then if you go to the beach, coming y'all from like where we live, add another 10%. So it's just
That's where
really
we
sweet.
were. So we were in Cabanel. It was very
Yeah,
humid. It
it's
was
so.
insane.
Yeah.
Yes, it was insane. I couldn't believe it. And I mean, it's got to have been another 10% or something. So yeah, so I can see why you would have enjoyed the heat.
It was lovely. The thing is, it's so dry there. They have misters on like all the sidewalks. Well, actually, in Sevilla, they had misters on all the sidewalks to cool you down, and it does cool you down. But if you put misters on the sidewalk in Valencia, you're just wetting everything more, right? Like you're just gonna
Right.
be
Oh, so
drenched.
that's so funny since you mentioned misters, because they had misters in the train station in Montpellier. So we went because the reason why we weren't taking a train, we were just walking through it,
Uh-huh.
because there was a shop in there that Zena wanted to visit. So
Okay.
we ended up in the train station, and it was hot. It was very hot when we were there. We went, and there was a place that we had gone and got ice cream that was we were seated outdoors, and they had the misters, and it was delightful. It was a wonderful combination of cooling off, right?
Mm-hmm.
They kind of blast at you for like a second, and then they go away and they come back and blast at you.
Right.
The train station, indoor of the train station, had misters going. It made it feel like, have you walked through one of those botanical garden indoor places where they keep it humid?
Right, yeah.
That's what that felt like. I'm like, why are you misting inside? Now you're creating this massive humidity that
You
is
don't want
unbearable.
That. You don't want that. And misting without an air conditioner to dry it off too, right?
No.
So
it was so damp and just hot, and I was like, you got 3 minutes inside the store.
Oh, that sounds horrible. So you drove down with the kids with your child and your dog, and I know a lot of people refer to their dogs as kids, so I'm appealing to all of our listeners.
For a baby. For a
baby. What was it hard to find accommodations, and did you mix it up? Did you stay in hotels and Airbnbs, or like what?
Yeah, let's talk about accommodations a little bit. We did a combination. So where we were staying longer, Montpellier, we stayed in an Airbnb type situation. I don't know if it was actually Airbnb because we got it on booking, but it's someone's apartment, and we did that because we like to have a bit of flexibility. We don't want to eat out every meal. We want to, and especially because since we were going to France, it was like we were eating out for certain things, and then we wanted to go to the grocery store. One of the joys of being in another country, go to the grocery store, get some good French cheeses, baguettes, some butter, all these yummy delicious things, and go to the patisserie and get some nice pastries and have that at home. So that was kind of a choice that we made, and so we kind of like doing that. And then in the other places, we just stayed in a hotel because we were just like literally staying overnight, and that was easier. But I've never had problems finding a place with a dog. You just put that in the filter and you're good to go. But I do, since we have a big dog, I will just double check and make sure that they're not expecting a Chihuahua. And then when they see us at like midnight, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, did we not tell you that we don't accept German Shepherds?
There's a 2-kilo limit, and you're like, oops.
Yeah, because, we can all drive in the car, but I don't think we all want to be sleeping in it. That would be like really not comfortable. So I do always check that, because that makes it easier, I think.
Right. Yeah, we just did hotels. Because my friend was coming with us, we also wanted her to have her own space and us to have our own space. So, it was her trip too. And she doesn't necessarily need to hear me yelling at the kids to get out of bed and get off their tablets. She doesn't need to be unrelaxed. You know what I mean?
So she got a whole other floor of the hotel, hopefully.
Actually, yes, she did in both and both times on the opposite side too. So there was she was going to hear us through the outside if her window was open either.
So does that mean somebody? So that's interesting, because it's been a long time since I've stayed in a hotel with somebody else in a different room like that. Like, did one of you get better views? Like, how does that work? Like, was there some jealousy going on in some places?
There was a little envy in our first hotel, and our second hotel. So our first hotel, in Sevilla, we were so pleasantly surprised when we arrived. It went above our expectations. So we booked these things together and looked at booking. I book through hotels, but I go through Booking or any of those Expedia to look at what are all the options. And so we were doing that together, and I was like, well, this hotel looks like it's in the area where it needs to be. It says it's got 3 beds because 3 separate people. It's not couples and a child. It's 3 separate people that need 3 beds. So one thing I love about traveling in Europe is that is a thing here. Finding a hotel in America with 3 separate beds, not going to happen. You're going to get 2 full beds, 2 queen beds in a room for 4 people, but you're not getting accommodations for kids to have their own bed. They're sleeping together. It's not a thing. But here, it's surprising here. It's like family rooms are a thing. You can find hotels with 5 beds in them, right? Bunk beds and that kind of thing, which was so cool. So we found a hotel that had 3 separate twin beds, and obviously one was added because our nightstands didn't match up to the headboards that were plastered to the wall, you know what I mean? But it wasn't a cot either. It was a real twin size.
It's a real bed. We had
the
same thing, and the extra bed was clearly added because it was taking up space that we would have had, obviously. Right. Like I could see how the room was designed.
Right.
And then they added the bed, which took up sort of Yeah, it took up some space, which is totally fine.
Right.
Like you said, we each ended up with a proper bed, so
Right.
who's going to
No one
complain?
was kicking me,
Yeah.
was the key thing. But that hotel really surprised, and our view was amazing. We were staying on. This was in Sevilla. We were staying on the plaza with the Lasitas, which are these that big mushroom sculpture. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you know about that. And we can talk about the sites in a little bit that we did get to see. We had a Juliet balcony, and it opened right to that, so we got to see that
Oh,
from our
lovely.
room. And the room was small, but it was really well appointed, and we were like, "This is amazing." And then we didn't stay overnight in Cordoba. That was an afternoon, but and then Granada we got there, and that hotel it met our expectations, but our rooms were huge. We all
Yeah.
had huge rooms, but our friend she
Nice.
had a big, huge balcony. And here's the thing: is, and this was a large hotel with like wings. Do you know what I mean? Like it
Okay.
wasn't just like a tower that was one
Right.
hallway. That you could get lost. And from our room, we could see her balcony, and we
Oh,
saw her out there sitting with a cup of coffee, and we were like,
what? From your
oh.
Romeo and Juliet balcony?
No, we didn't have it in Granada. We
Oh.
didn't have a balcony at all,
Oh
so we
my
had a
God.
gorgeous view. But she had room to throw a party, and I was like,
Oh my
oh,
God, so jealous. So another thing about the hotels and stuff is if you have a car, you know, if you're staying in the middle of a city like that, the parking's going to cost you. Like
right,
even if like the places that have parking, it might be on the next block. It's unlikely to be under the hotel. So it's probably you will have parking, but you will easily pay 20 euros a night for parking. So
minimum, I would
that's
think,
just
yeah.
yeah. So sometimes it might be easier to stay in a nice place outside of the city and just drive in and park and do your thing and drive out again. So it depends on how you want to do it, but you'll definitely be paying a premium price for parking in cities that are popular for, and that's what we ran into in Zaragoza.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it does depend, I think.
What I wanted to, we brushed on your experience of the driving, but we didn't
Mm-hmm.
talk about what the train situation was like. So
Oh
I think,
yes. Please tell I would actually like to know how you book the trains because we're driving, so we're just taking the roads. We're good. Like
right,
if you're booking a train, like when I'm in England I'll use like Trainline because they seem to know it's more complicated. They need to know when things are always closed in England and whatever. But
right.
here I know there's different companies that do different trains. Do you get that all on one app or do you like how do you do it?
People do use Trainline here and Omeo. Those are like the apps. I don't use them. I'm a go to the site people, and I've lived here long enough that I know everything. It's like it's. I don't want to say I know everything. Sorry. I'm a know it all.
You know enough.
I know enough.
You don't have a car, so you do know a lot more than a lot of us about how to use the train. So maybe not everything, but a lot.
But a lot. Yeah, so I've been here long enough to know that there's basically three train lines. There's Renfe, which is the state-owned, and they have their own divisions in that. They have the Ave, which is the high speed, the Avlo, which is the high speed discount train, and then
Okay.
there are other trains which are like their medium distance, the slower speed trains, that. And then there's Ouigo, which is a French company, which is a discount train, and Iria, which
Mm-hmm.
is an Italian company, which is a discount train. But they have very limited routes. It's like Valencia, Madrid, Madrid, Barcelona, Barcelona, I mean, then Madrid to like Andalusia to Sevilla, maybe down to Cadiz. But it's not going to all these other cities.
But
So
Renfe's also doing those routes.
it's also doing those routes as well as
Okay.
all the other routes in Spain. So you're going to need
Right.
Renfe to get to a lot of cities, and Ouigo and
Right.
Iria are kind of like the popular routes. They cover those. And so in my experience, Ouigo's been the cheapest. Irio's like next up, and then like Avlo, and then Ave's very expensive, or
Okay.
comparatively. And it also depends when you book, right? So if you book more than 60 days out, you're going to get a lot cheaper. I mean, I was looking at one fare, and literally the next day it had gone up 15 euros. I was like, oh, why
Oh.
didn't I book it the night before?
So the pricing wise, you think that the Renfe options are comparable to the other trains,
The
or they're
Avlo
not?
one is, not the Ave. The Ave is definitely a lot more expensive because it's
Okay.
considered their higher line. And
And they're
really,
higher than the other trains, the other companies, the French and the Italian
the
companies.
French and the Italian are like your Southwest Airlines of Spain, right? Like that's the
Oh, okay.
Southwest. It's like they're very discount, but they're very nice. Ouigo's my favorite. I'm going to give an unsponsored plug because they've got purple velvet seats and little lights at the tables, like little like so you feel like
Oh.
you're like a modern, like a hip Orient Express. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's nice. Oh,
Yeah.
and which one has the free headphones? Because that's a
That
go.
was the Ave Renfe, hence the price
Oh,
premium.
okay.
So maybe they
Okay.
weren't
Good to
really
know.
free.
Good to know. So it's worse. So what's your suggestion? Is that if like you should check them all, or Renfe is good for getting a probably the cheapest
We
best
would not have
price,
been able
or
to take Wigo or Irio down without having to go
I
to
see.
Madrid. So because we'd had to connect to Madrid. So Renfe had a train, like they have a train that goes from Valencia straight to Cadiz, and Sevilla is one of the stops, and it's a high speed train. There's only like 4 or 5 stops along the way. Obviously, we didn't go to Cadiz, but there's this one line, and so we had
Right.
no choice but to take that train to get there as quick as possible. And it was only 4.5 hours from here to Sevilla. And if you look on a map, that's one side of the country to the other. It's far.
That's it is, and Spain is big.
It
When
is
you
big.
start driving it and taking trains, you realize it's really, really far. Because we were, our goal was to get to France, and we were driving, and we were like, let's try and leave early enough to get to France by lunchtime. And
Hmm.
it's that was hard to leave that to leave early enough to do that.
Right, right. and, and what's great about the trains in Europe, right? It's for the most part you're in the center of the city, so you're getting off in the center of the
Right.
city, right? So if you
Yeah.
that's where all the sites are for the most part for this trip anyway. Like we weren't doing climbing and hiking and waterfall seeing, so we wanted to be in the
Yeah,
center,
and I
so it
think
worked
you
out.
also see more. You see more of the city when you come into the train station because you're gonna have to walk or you know something to get to the hotel, and you're going to be walking around and doing that kind of stuff because you're not really exploring anything outside of the city.
Right,
So we
right.
could stop outside of the cities, and we went to various cities, and we went to also a place called Prezinas in France, which was close to Montpellier because obviously it had the word Zina in the name, so we had to stop there. It was also
Gotcha.
recommended, and it was a really really cute little typical French town. It was adorable. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
And so it's like to do those sorts of things when you're taking the train, I think is harder. But on the flip side, you're all chilling, so it's really nice, right?
Right, right.
Everyone's more relaxed, and you're going to exactly where you want to go. And I think there's big benefits. I think we definitely have to take a train trip one
I
day.
will say, when I became before I was a dad, I was a road trip person. Loved it. I'd go in the car, and then I became a dad, a single dad with 2 kids, and I never wanted to drive again because it wasn't
Yeah,
relaxing, because it's sippy
yeah,
cups and someone's crying and someone's like, it just became more nerve-wracking. And so when we lived in the States, I'm like, if it's longer than an hour, we're taking a train or a plane, and if they don't go there, then we're not going, because I
yeah.
don't want to be, especially in California, the highways, and I'm like, it just was
It's
so
so
stressful.
far.
Yeah, and so
But you're the
stressful.
only one. You're the only one driving. So I mean,
Right.
at least if you got two adults, you only have to drive half the time. So it definitely, I could see how that. I could definitely see how
Yeah.
that would
And now
happen.
I'm
Yeah.
used to it, because I'm like, once the trip, when we all get in the train, the trip starts for all of us. When you're in a car,
Right.
I feel like, especially coming from California, when you're in the car, if you're road tripping it somewhere, you never get vacation, because the whole time you're at where you're at, you're thinking about, when do we have to leave? You're doing the math on the traffic, because if we leave at 10:30, we could maybe avoid the rush hour traffic to where we're going. But if we leave at 10:35, it ain't gonna happen. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, but
my
I
mind's
find
like,
that more relaxing than I do actually. I'm not a big driver. I'm enjoying it more now, but I never was when I lived in California wanting to drive for 10 hours somewhere. Just never. So I'm actually starting to enjoy it more, but I like the idea that we can leave whenever we want and get somewhere wherever we want. And we're not like, "Oh my god, everybody pack your things. We got to get to the train station because our train's leaving at 10:30 and oh my god." And then it's like you're missing a train. Like the stress of the thought of missing the train that you've booked would be more stress for me. So I think it just depends on your personality, right?
right. Well, I
Because
mean,
the
like I
stress
said,
of
I'm talking
that.
about from California, where traffic is a huge issue, and there's like an maybe a 2 hour window within 24 hours where there isn't traffic. Where here, yeah, I don't ever see traffic on the road, so maybe it'd be a different approach, you
It's
know?
different. We hit some traffic, obviously going over the border. So there's no
Mm-hmm.
border, but there's still what used to be a border there, and I presume something that they had sort of set up during COVID. They probably put a border back there. I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
there is a border, between France and Spain, up in the mountains there, and that was kind of trafficy. And also a little fun fact. I don't know if you consider this a fun fact. There's a lot of French cars going back and forth. There's
Okay.
not a lot of Spanish cars going back and forth. It's almost all French and Dutch.
Really?
and a few German. Yeah, that's. I mean, if you're looking at all the cars, we were literally playing a game where it was like spot a Spanish car because
Mm-hmm.
there were so few of them. So I
I
thought that
wonder
was really
why.
interesting.
That's
Yeah, and that's
interesting.
going. I don't think the Spanish road trip like that. The Spanish road trip around Spain. I don't think they're like, let's go to Germany, let's go
Right.
out to France. I don't think that's really. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before. The Spanish are not, I mean, compared to other countries, they're not big travelers. So that's also, we noticed that on the road as well, which I thought was interesting, is they're just not so much doing that.
Well, if
And of course,
everyone's coming here already, you know
everyone's
what you got. Why leave?
right. Well, true. And everyone's coming to Spain because Spain's where you want to be in the summer. So I don't know if that would change in the winter, maybe a different time of year. Who knows?
Who knows? But they got skiing here. Why leave? Why go to the Alps when you got skiing in your backyard? Who knows?
We have everything here. There's no, it's kind of like America. It's like, there's no reason to leave. We can do everything here. So where did you end up visiting? Of the, like, specifically in each of the towns that you went to.
Right. So we kind of did like the grand tour, not the grand tour. Like we hit the hot spots, right? We
There
wanted
you
to
go.
see. So I will
Literally the hot spots.
literally the hot spots. I will say in this trip, in retrospect, which I would not have done, I wish I would have extended it a couple nights longer and made it to Cadiz, and I wish I would have spent another night in Sevilla. But we did see all the sights. Sevilla, I definitely want to go back and see because we were there 2 nights, but I felt like we needed like another night of where we weren't seeing sights to actually explore the city because where our hotel was kind of like a beeline to the main sites. So we didn't veer off of that.
I
So I
see.
didn't we didn't
Yeah.
really see the neighborhoods on the east and west of where we were. But in Sevilla we did go to the Alcazar, which is the big royal palace, and it's still the royal palace. When the royal family goes, they stay there. So you don't get to see everything, and you can pay extra to see like some bedrooms and stuff, but I wasn't paying. The thing was huge enough that I was like, we're not paying more to see more when we're already our feet were
Right.
falling off. We were doing like
Yeah.
25,000 steps a day, according to our phone. And I think it lied. I think we did more. So
Uh,
we were,
Now the phone doesn't know how to calculate steps.
no. But like we arrived that day at like 1:30. Our friend arrived around the same time. We went for the walk, came back to the hotel, and we did stay everywhere we stayed had pools, which was key. So how we planned this trip, which was perfect. So if anyone wants to do an Andalusia trip, my thing is book all your sites early in the morning, like at 10 a.m. Get your hotel breakfast. Eat at the hotel, go out for your walk, and then come back, have lunch while you're there, and then that siesta time from like 3 to 5. That's when we were at the hotel pool. Then we took a nap, and then we went to the evening some places, we would go to other things at night and then have dinner out, and that was really nice. We avoided that heat in the late afternoon, and if people don't know, Spain is hot from 3 to 5. It's not 10 to 2. It's 3 to 5 is the hottest, especially down there. It's really hot. So that was the time to go lay in the pool and then get a nap in and then be
Yeah.
refreshed to do. And then
And
the
the
pools were
places were
great.
open, and the places were open in the evening. The
Hmm.
tourist sites were all open in the evening
Some
for
of
you to
them,
go
like until
tour.
like 8 or 9. So like if you're done five
Okay,
or
that's long
six,
enough.
okay, so
Yeah.
you'd see a site and then go to dinner afterwards. That's how we were doing. You could do the 9 o'clock dinner and but see another.
Right.
So like when we were in Sevilla, like I said, we went to the Alcazar, which is huge. The Royal Palace, very, it has all the Arabic influences, the Islamic art and architecture, huge gardens. It was breathtaking, and the coolest thing we saw there that we all agree in the family is downstairs was like the hammam, the baths, and there's this one long pool that I will post. I will post that picture as one of our posts of this pool structure. The way it was just gorgeous. It looked like it was in
Oh,
this
wow.
cave, and the way the light was coming through wherever they were having holes and wherever to get the light in. It was just gorgeous, and
Like
it
spectacular.
was spectacular. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you could see the rooms where this is where they would do the beating you with palm fronds and all the different
They weren't
saunas.
doing that though.
So that was cool, and then the cathedral. Those were like the two big sites that we saw. Was the cathedral, which has the remains of Christopher Columbus, which was pretty cool. I mean, it was just this huge
Yeah.
thing with these four pallbearers statues, and then the casket. And then he's in there, and they just did a test. Not, I mean, it was the last like I don't know how many years, 20 years, that the DNA matches up. It's really him in there.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. And in the other cities that you went to, what did you see?
So in
Was
Cordoba, so this was a key thing too. Cordoba, we just went to the afternoon. We booked a morning train. I think our train was at like 9:30 in the morning. It's like hour and a half from Sevilla to Cordoba. We found a storage facility for our suitcases, which was really interesting. A little heads up here. They don't have storage at that train station. So you have to find
okay.
these like third party places, which is like a little storefront somewhere. Totally easy. They
Okay.
give you a code, you put the code in, a locker opens up, and you put your stuff in there, and then
So
you
just
leave.
like the train stuff, just somewhere else.
Yeah, but somewhere
Yeah,
else.
that's
Yeah,
cool.
and
Okay.
so I thought that was really, and it wasn't that expensive. So in Cordoba, we went to go see, and we're gonna do a Poco on this one. Maybe a long episode. I don't know if I can get it all in a Poco, but we went to see the mosque cathedral. So it was originally a mosque, and then they planted a cathedral in the center of it. How they did that, I don't know, but it was one of the most amazing things I've seen. And it's right in the heart of also the Jewish quarter was right there. So we got to see the remains of an old synagogue that had been stripped of all of its stuff, but the building was still there. So we got to see all the religion. We got all the Abrahamic religions
Right.
done in like an hour and a half. We got
All in one spot.
yeah. And then after we saw all that stuff, we had lunch, got our luggage, went back on the train, and we were in Granada by like 5 p.m. So that was like a
That's
perfect.
awesome. But that reminds me. I mean, that seems very similar to the palace that we saw in Zaragoza. So one of the reasons we had a few reasons for wanting to go that way. So when we got to Zaragoza, they have the Aljaferia Palace, and that is a palace that has a lot. Again, we'll probably do another episode on these amazing places that we saw because we can't get it all into what we did during our summer.
Right.
But that is an 11th century historic fortified palace in Zaragoza. It is gorgeous, but it looks like it's so interesting. And I don't know if you had this experience with any of the places that you visited. This is also a mixed religion palace, right? So it is considered this is the largest amount of Mudéjar art in Spain. So this has the Islamic artistry, but the outside looks like a fortress. On the outside, it could be a fortress in England and anywhere, like literally anywhere. It's just flat.
It's just
And then
flat
you
stonework, right? Just
Yeah. And then you walk inside and it's just spectacularly looks to me like a lot of the places that we've seen in Morocco. Just this ornate, the arches, the tile work, like everything is just absolutely spectacular. And you can kind of walk around the whole thing. And there are certain rooms that are bigger and have been kept up better, but the whole place is like absolutely amazing. And we had to do that sort of separately because it was, I think I want to say it was around €5 a ticket or something, but we have the dog, so we can't all go in because they don't take dogs, right?
Right.
So Zena and I went in, and Jawad stayed with Blaze, and then I bought. And this is a little bit of a trick when you're doing these things, and you've probably had the same experience. Either buy the tickets online or go early. So
Right.
we went very early, like literally the minute that the ticket office opened, and waited in line, which wasn't a very long line at that point, and we got the tickets for all of us. But because Zena and I were going in late morning, we had to get Jawad a ticket for the afternoon because they were separating the tickets out. So if you had a morning ticket, you couldn't use that in the afternoon and vice
Right.
versa. So then once we were done, we came out, we stayed with Blaze, and Jawad went in with his afternoon ticket. So it all worked very nicely, but I highly recommend, I think we both recommend probably all the places that we visited
Right.
on this trip. But it was nice to have a little bit of French food and then a little bit of Spanish culture and
Right.
kind of mix it all in.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I also agree with the tickets, right? I booked all that stuff before, and some of the places, like when we went to Granada, the hotel we stayed at was right up by the Alhambra, and I didn't know how hilly, like Granada, like Sevilla flat, Cordoba flat. Granada, it's the San Francisco of Spain. I mean, you are climbing mountains just to get anywhere. And I mean,
So less steps on your phone, but more exercise.
no, we had steps and height added to the phone in Granada.
Well, that's what I mean, but less steps maybe, or was it the same amount
No, we
of
still
steps
did
you were doing?
20,000 steps and 50
Oh,
flights.
wow.
Yeah.
And the 50 flights.
But what was nice is our hotel was across from the Alhambra, which I knew to book. I mean, that was a great thing because we knew that was the thing we wanted to see. We didn't realize it was on the top of the mountain. So really glad we did, because what was nice about that, the Alhambra tickets, is you were paying for a time to see just one of the palaces, but the tickets were for the whole day. So it was great. We booked those for early morning to see the main palace that you want to see. And we walked around, like the Alhambra is like a city fortress that's like a real castle, like with people lived
Yeah.
there and all of that. We did the afternoon break at the hotel, and then at night we went back to see the rest of it, so we could come and
That's
go. So
amazing.
if
I'm
anyone,
surprised because usually for a ticket for crowd control, that isn't very common. So the fact that you could buy a ticket for the whole day, I would say is pretty unique.
right? Well, we couldn't go back into that one palace, so it was
Oh,
timed
okay.
for that, but the ticket was for the whole day. So I mean, and it's huge. So yes, it is for crowd control for that, but no, that's the
Yeah.
thing people want to see, and then the other things you kind of come and go, and which was nice when because the Generalife, which is the other part of the Alhambra complex, we were up there as the night was cool, like it was getting cooler. And so it was, we had this, early in the morning we were dying of heat stroke, and now we are like, oh, this
Right.
is lovely, and it was getting a little darker.
So much more pleasant. And I will say that was, unfortunately, I think we would have, it was very hot for the week that we were traveling. But when we came into, when we were on our way to Zaragoza, it started to feel a little cooler because we were in the mountains. But then I think we came down. But it was, but it was funny because we were then in Aragon, Spain, which we've never been to before. And Zena had been learning. So this was just like a little funny side note, which is that she had been learning about Henry VIII, I think, or had
Okay.
learned some song about Henry VIII and all his wives. And of course, his first wife was Catherine of Aragon. Right, so that was his first marriage that he wanted to get annulled, and that is how the Church of England became, because he wanted to have a divorce or get it annulled, and he couldn't do that through the Catholic Church. So
Okay.
that's how that all happened. So we're sitting, we're driving and singing the silly Henry VIII wife songs
Right.
as we're driving through Aragon, like there, which of course has nothing to do with them, but it was a fun tidbit for us since we're kind of English. Now we're over in Spain. So that was a fun
So in
Aragon
your
part.
travels, would you say there was a place that was friendlier than the other, or more touristy, or like what was your experience coming from Valencia, and did you have a takeout on, a take on that?
We weren't really doing touristy things like you. I mean, we did go visit the palace, but that was kind of one thing. The rest of it, we were just in places. And
Mm-hmm.
Montpellier is not, I don't think, particularly a tourist trap per se. I mean, we were walking around the town. It was quite quiet because it's August. So much like Valencia, I think unless you're hitting really, but I think even the palace in Zaragoza, I don't think August is when people are going there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably packed in spring breaks
Oh,
and
for
things, I
sure.
would imagine, right? Like, I think August is a great time to travel if you can manage the heat, because
Right.
nobody wants to be doing these things in August,
No,
really.
no.
It's just when we both decided to do
Well,
it.
we did ours in mid-July, so it wasn't
Yeah.
August, but it's not the high season. That being said, Granada was still packed. I feel like Granada is high season year round
I
because
would think so.
it's so
Yeah.
important with Islamic architecture and Muslims and stuff. So we saw a lot of Muslim tourists there. It was just packed. You could just tell they were packed all the time. I can't imagine what high season looked like. Sevilla was definitely in a slow mode, so like there were not
Yeah.
lines to get in anything there, even with Cordoba. And the mosque was pretty full, but not, we weren't waiting, right? There was no lines for
Yeah.
anything. Even though we had tickets, you would still see lines. We did not see lines anywhere.
So that's kind of
Granada, there was lines.
surprising,
Yeah.
right? That's kind of surprising. I mean, I would think all those spots would be, like you said, kind of busy all year round. But that's good to know. So if you go in like July, August, and you stay in a hotel with a pool, I feel like you have it all. Like, it was a good
Oh, I
decision.
mean, the rates were not expensive. I mean, our hotel for three people in Granada was like less. It was like 80 or 90 euros a night, and that included breakfast in the morning and a pool right there. But if you go down to Malaga, your room's 500 a night. So I mean, everyone's at the
Right.
beaches down there. That's not the time they're going there. And our room in Sevilla, I think it was like 140 a night, which was really cheap considering we
That's
had
not bad.
and that
Yeah,
place
and
was
the
nice. That was a nice
yeah.
hotel.
And the hotel we stayed in Zaragoza, we stayed outside of the city because we didn't. I mean, we were sort of within the city, but sort of on the outer side because we had the car and everything. And I would say the breakfast we did not take because that was an extra 11 euros. So that's 33 euros for three people. I mean, that's not really worth it in Spain. I mean, for 33 euros, you can go out and get like a full on lunch, right? So that really didn't seem worth it. And when we looked at the breakfast, it really was just like slices of ham and cheese and some bread. And it was nothing sort of fancy. So I think we made the best decision there actually. But speaking of food, did you have like, I mean, you're still in Spain. Did the food seem to change a lot to what you see that you have in Valencia? Or was it, you were obviously eating out and doing things that maybe you don't do in Valencia because you're on holiday, but...
So I have to say that the best food that we had the entire trip was in Sevilla, and it was our first night. We asked the concierge, where should we go, or the hotel front desk person, where should we go? And they're like, oh, go to this restaurant. It's around the corner. It's the oldest restaurant in Sevilla. And so we're like, okay, it's gonna be like a tourist trap, but let's walk by it. Like, what's this guy talking about? And it was called El Rinconcillo. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it says it opened in 1670. So how that's not the oldest restaurant in the world, I don't know. But anyway, we walked by then. We walked in, and it was filled with Spaniards. Like, I'm like,
okay.
So this is like authentic. Like, people are still eating here. It's not some tourist trap, kind of place.
I have to imagine it would have to be if it's going to be lasting that long. It can't just be a tourist trap, right? It has to be serving good food.
And you could tell people, I mean, there was a lot of tourists in there, but the people stacked up at the bar having a good time were all Spaniards, right? They're from the neighborhood. Right. And we had oxtail and duck confit and octopus and langostinos and salads and tons of food and a bottle of wine and dessert, and it came to like 110 euros for four people.
so it's worth going just to Sevilla.
Everything
just to
melted
go there.
in our mouths and didn't melt our wallet. It was amazing. So
gotta love that.
And then the next time we went for tapas, and they're a little different, not much different. I think our food here mirrors it a little bit, the tapas kind of stuff. But tapas are definitely more of a thing down there. Like when we were in Granada waiting for the actually at a few places we went to the tapas, they're free with your beer or your soda or your bottled water. So it was there. You don't see that so much here, and maybe you do see it in some places here, but it was the culture there of the tapas that you're getting, and it's like you get one small one with every drink, and you can order them for like €1 or €2 a piece extra. So that tapas culture was more ingrained, where here people order tapas, but I feel like the tapas are bigger and they're more shareable, where there you were getting more individual items that you could get a bunch of to share, but like you're not getting a plate to share, if that makes sense. That's my experience. I could be wrong.
I haven't gone out drinking in Valencia, to be honest, so I don't know, but it seems that is not as common here in this part of Spain, and maybe more common in the northern parts of Spain, and up there probably different types of tapas too. So that's good to know. So our tapas are kind of similar to what's going on.
A lot more Middle Eastern, a lot more Moroccan influence, a lot of those kind of spaces. I will say in Granada there is a Middle Eastern section, right? I felt like I've not been to Morocco, so I could be wrong, but I felt like I was in Morocco. They had like souki type stuff and all these street sellers. Wow. And they have some great shops down there that's with spices galore and different chocolates, and so we filled up a backpack of stuff. It's all gone now, but of spices and teas. It felt very Middle Eastern down there, and that was kind of cool. I
wonder if that's like remnants of it, or just because there's so many more tourists coming from that part of the world that they're catering to it.
No, I think it's the remnants. I think it's I think it's one's remnants. I mean, they're obviously still living there or moving there, so I think it's a little bit of like an immigration thing, is also remnants of the past, kind of combining, right?
A
little bit of both. But yeah,
well,
it was
interesting.
No
so
regrets.
we made some interesting choices with. So the first thing we did wrong with food was. Well, the first thing we did that was wrong with food was Zena made some chocolate banana bread to take for our road trip, which seemed like a really good idea, right? But then we realized we were literally going to France to have all these delicious pastries. So I'm not sure why we were like decided. So that banana bread is very well traveled. It took the whole trip with us.
Okay.
And most of it made it home.
Did you pack a cooler while you
Oh
were on
yeah,
this
we
trip?
did.
Okay.
Of
Okay.
course, yeah, we had. Well, of course, because we needed to bring some French cheeses back and things, so we definitely needed to have a cooler. So that, anyway, very very well traveled banana bread. And then when we were in Montpellier, we had at the Place de la Comédie. I don't know how you pronounce that, but that's the main square. It's really beautiful, the main square in Montpellier. They have a really beautiful sort of old town in general, but that place is really fun, and they have people doing magic and things for for money and stuff, so it's really fun. And they also have a ton of restaurants with loads of outdoor seating there, so we did go and eat in one of those restaurants, and we had a really good steak frite, which was the kind of the one sort of real French meal that I wanted to have in France, and it was very good. And I think Zena had a pizza. It was one of those restaurants, I guess and it was a very good pizza as well. So that was kind of, and other than that, we were sort of shopping and doing things like that for food. And then our last food thing was, obviously, since we were in Zaragoza, we had to stop by Costco
Okay.
and
Yes, you
shop
did.
there. So we did have to swing by, and Jawad, I think, had to get we all ended up with one, obviously, but I think he wanted to get a Costco hot dog. And it was fun. I know there's supposed to be one here that has never ever arrived. I will say, after being here, after being here for 5 years, there weren't that many things there really that
you missed,
that we needed.
Right.
Almond butter was the thing that I stocked up on, and there was a few other things, but it wasn't sort of this big sort of, oh my god, let's buy everything thing there, because a lot of it's very Spanish. I mean, they don't have goldfish crackers. They have sort of Spanish crackers that you can,
right,
or maybe they're American ones, but I mean, you can already buy them in the store. So they just have bigger versions of things you can buy here. And then they had like the bakery had loads and loads of Spanish pastry like things that you can buy in bulk. So they've definitely adjusted, to Spain.
right,
Yeah.
which would make sense.
Yeah, which would make sense, exactly.
I will say, one of the things I took away from also our trip was that Granada was very much geared towards tourists, and the pricing reflected that. Everything was more expensive. Not going to break your wallet, but like eating out in Granada was much more expensive than eating out in Sevilla. Sevilla was priced similar to Valencia, which was
Oh,
nice.
really? Okay.
And I found
That's
this
interesting.
the people in Sevilla to be much more outgoing, friendly, where Granada they seemed more reserved. They could have just been exhausted from all the tourists. I mean, I feel like if you're
Right.
like how friendly you're going to be when you have 70 languages coming at you every five
Right.
minutes, right? Like it's probably a lot. Not that anyone was rude. I would not say that, but like Sevilla, I felt like they wanted to like file my toes for me. Like, I mean, they were just so nice. Everyone was so helpful at the restaurants, even at this tourist sites.
Did you find that Sevilla was more like a city that had some things to see, that you could all go around and do it, and in Granada the whole town was really like a tourist area where like if you're living there you have to be working in the tourist industry? Like, was the vibe of how the tourist stuff worked different?
Maybe. I mean, Granada was much smaller, so we definitely saw all of it, even just by cab, even if we didn't walk around it. It's a much smaller city. I think it's like 200,000, where Sevilla is the same size as Valencia. It's 700,000 people living there. So
Yeah.
it's rather large. And so I feel like Granada had they have all these like houses on the hills, which are beautiful. And I feel like there might be a lot of retirees there, as well as tourists. Like, there's not industry there, right?
Right.
There's not banks. I mean, there are
Yeah.
banks, obviously, people have to bank, but there isn't like corporate banks. And I didn't feel like there's like kind of industry. It's not a Madrid or a Barcelona. Even like even Sevilla and Valencia don't have that kind of industry to work for, that kind of thing. These are kind
Right.
of working cities, but it definitely felt more geared towards tourists, because that's what they got there. The Alhambra, they got a cathedral, and then they have this church that I forgot to mention. I don't even know if I told you about this before today. They have this one church called the Basilica de San Juan de Dios, and you know how we did that Poco Poco about the church here, the Baroque church.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
The really
that one
painted
makes
one.
this one makes that one look minimalist. This
Oh
one we
really?
will do
I
a
find that
Poco
hard to
Poco.
believe.
We will do a Poco Poco. We accidentally stumbled upon this thing, and I was like, we
Right.
have to go. And I'm just gonna leave you with, for our family that loves horror movies, it was up our alley. There are hundreds of skeleton bones in the
Oh.
church, part of the decoration, like in little
Yeah.
glass cages. So we'll talk about it another time. But that
Well,
was
you do stumble across these types of churches because there's no preparation for them looking at them from the outside. It's
right.
all interior decor and stuff that you just cannot be prepared for, I think. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think Zaragoza was probably more like Sevilla in that way. I mean, it's not as big as Valencia, but it's got a small old town part that reminded me more of like Malaga. Like you've got, and then the rest of it's just pretty modern.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than Valencia, which has quite a large downtown sort of very very decorated buildings and stuff. And I think it's much smaller in Zaragoza, more like Malaga. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's a lot of industry there. I think Amazon has their base there in Spain, so Zaragoza does have a lot going on for it there as far as business.
Mm-hmm.
And then it obviously has the palace and the downtown, but other than that, it's very very business there, I think.
Gotcha, gotcha. There was one thing I wanted to bring up about Sevilla that really kind of like shocked me. Was that there are stores on every corner that sell flamenco dresses and outfits. And I can't think this is still for the tourist trade. I know no one who lives in Sevilla, but obviously flamenco must still be very much a part of the life because there are tons of stores with these elaborate polka dotted flamenco dresses that we talked about in our Poco a Polka. It is
Yeah.
alive and well there. And I can't imagine people from Nebraska or Budapest are taking home flamenco dresses,
Really?
by the dozen.
Oh, I think they are. I think they are for sure. That's such a Spanish thing. I mean, especially for the kids. Like we've had several friends visit that have bought flamenco dresses for their kids. So I don't know
I
about
mean,
the
these
adult
things are
ones.
expensive and ornate and elaborate too. So
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of that. I
Mm.
guess I would compare it to here. That I mean, you might not notice it here if you're a tourist here, but we notice it here is that all the fallera shops selling all that are
Right.
the tailors that are
Yeah,
making
yeah.
those outfits. It's kind of like that, but these are much like they're more in your face there because it's. But I
Yeah, so
was
I wonder if there's a big festival surrounding that's happening there once a year, perhaps, where they need all these things, because that sounds like what it's like.
Yeah, I mean,
We
I
went,
mean, I think it's yeah. I would like to. I
yeah,
would like to go back and no. I'm sure there is a flamenco festival. I'm sure there's got to be. We've got
yeah,
festivals for everything. So I'm
yeah.
sure.
So I mean, we went to a festival as part of our summer. It's not part of our road trip, but it's near where we live here. We went to a festival down in Bettera, and they do a whole festival around basil, the herb, right?
Right.
So they grow all year these massive basil trees, I want to call them. They're just enormous. And what I found by going there, so they kind of walk these down the street as part of a parade, but part of it too is that everyone's wearing these flowered shirts, not the same one, but it's
Mm-hmm.
almost as if like maybe every part of the town has a different flowered shirt, or maybe every year they do a different one, so there's a lot of people wearing different ones. So it was like that was an added sort of costume part of it that I wasn't expecting. So they have these massive basil plants that they're walking
Mm-hmm.
down, and then they shake them so you can smell them, and it's like one of definitely the best smelling event that
I
I've ever
need to
been
know
to.
about this next year and go because someone didn't tell me about it this year. I saw
Well,
pictures, so I'm
Well,
going.
because I didn't know it was. I honestly had no idea that it would be this much fun. Because the other part of it, and you can look on any of our like YouTube or wherever, I did post a video of them throwing the confetti.
Mm-hmm.
They must. I mean, tons and tons of confetti was thrown at this thing. That you are literally like ankle deep in confetti. The kids are just picking it up off the floor and throwing it because there's piles of it everywhere. And it was really really fun. So we definitely have to go to that one. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like all these towns have these festivals that
Mm-hmm.
might be surrounded by them people needing certain clothes and, you know, like you said, the fallas as well. So who knows what you stumble across sometimes. But that was a kind of a funny thing. And, you know, speaking of summer, I don't know what else you've done the rest of the summer. We've obviously been to the beach a few times. I've been trying to paddleboard with a friend of mine, which we're getting better.
Are you? Okay, good.
we can stand up now. We're really proud of ourselves.
We have unfortunately been lounging around our house a lot. We did go to the movies and getting lunches and those kinds of things, but that was kind of our summer trip, was Andalusia. We've gone to friends' houses like yours with pools. We keep saying we're going to go to the beach and we never go, which is horrible. We moved here to the beach, but we have yet.
It's nice to know it's there. Sometimes that has to be enough.
Exactly.
You don't always get.
I think we also probably should have stayed at hotels with pools, because now we're like, I'd just rather have a pool. Like, go to the beach with the sand and the warm water and the jellyfish.
I will say we love having a pool, and it does mean that sometimes you don't go to the beach because it's right here, so we might as well enjoy the fact that we have a summer house with a pool and everything, which is what people come down and rent to live and have for a summer. So we're kind of living that dream, obviously, but the beach is a different scenario, and it has been really hot this summer. I feel like it's been a little extra. So being at the beach, it
seems that way to me. It seems the air has been really hot and thick this summer. So it's
so that was kind of why we started getting into the paddleboarding, because we go at like 7:30 in the morning, and that is really the nicest time. You either want to go at 7:30 in the morning or probably 7:30 at night.
Right.
And you know, they have these. We haven't taken advantage of this year, but they do put up every summer these little bars that sell little drinks and ice cream and stuff, and they put them on the beach, so you can kind of go to the beach and have a really nice evening day at the beach and have access to stuff there. And at certain beaches that don't have a lot of restaurants, which a lot of the beaches up the coast here do not have a very big, they might have promenades, but they don't have a lot of restaurants on them.
Right.
So
it's like what we said, but I think we've talked about this before, especially this area of Spain. Valencia doesn't have a beach culture. There's no beach. What I mean is, it's not a tourist beach place.
Right, that's not where you go.
I mean, the people are there only in the summertime. So why would you open a restaurant if there's going to be, during 9 months of the year, 4 people living in the town to eat there? Right? It's just a different. There aren't hotels on the beaches here like you find up and down the coast and other parts.
It's houses and apartments mostly. And then a lot of the beaches near us do have the promenade, so you can go down there and walk your dog or yourself, or the kid can go on a skateboard or rollerblades or something. But it's it's quiet. It's kind of a quiet place, and sometimes we have a town near us that does a little festival at the beach, which is nice, and they bring the food trucks and some fun things to do. But it's not a big, like, people that live at the beach there, it's mostly summer houses and summer apartments, so like you said, mostly dead in the winter, which is when I like it. So it's cooler. But then so we had some jellyfish in the last couple of weeks, which put us off our paddleboarding, because I'm not falling into a bowl of jellyfish. So that kind of put a lid on that one, and so now we're end of summer, back to school, I guess.
We are, and I'm gonna hopefully, you know what? I'm determined. We're gonna go to the beach before this weekend starts. Okay. Maybe Friday we'll go to the beach, and then this weekend it's making sure everyone's uniforms ready and backpacks are ready to go, and then I'm just going to put them by the door and say,
don't come back.
Don't come back. All right. Ciao, Tanya.
Bye.
Hey, can't get enough of us? Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Spain Podcast.
And on our website, ourspain.com, which we will be updating with exciting new things as we grow.
We would love for you to message us with any topics you would like to hear about.
See you next time.
Bye.